Welcome to Life Empowers with Melissa Ohden. Where there is life, there is hope. Where there is life, there's a place for love to grow, and love emboldens and strengthens. Where there is life, there's an opportunity to grow and be empowered. I'm living testament to that, and you are too. And if you don't yet feel like your life is testament to this, don't despair and don't stop listening to this podcast. This is exactly why I'm doing it. Thanks for joining me this week as we delve into so many life-affirming topics. Hey everybody, I am thrilled to be joining you. And can I just start off by saying, was August the longest month in the history of months for anyone else? I can't remember if I brought it up in the last podcast episode, but I tell you, I really felt like August was one of the longest months of my life and the lives of so many people around me, from back to school to vacations to surgeries and illnesses and grief and losses. And some of it I couldn't even talk about at the time. And I don't know that I ever will, because some of it has been so painful to watch other people live out. But yeah, let's just say August was a long month. It always is for me because of my birthday being in August. I guess that kind of relates to what I'm going to talk about in this podcast episode. But hold on. I promise it's going to be good. But August is always a long month for me. And as August has turned into September, and now we're approaching the middle of the month already. I don't know how that has happened. But I feel like the months are getting, I don't know what word I'm looking for. The months are getting, I don't want to say harder, but they just seem to be increasingly overwhelming. I'm struggling for the word. I don't even know if overwhelming is the right word, but they are just consistently full of, positives, but also negatives. So much suffering in the world, so much action when it comes to abortion. And that's the part that I want to talk about today. I feel like we've lived 1,000,000 years since the pandemic began. But we've also lived 1,000,000 years since Claire Culwell and I spoke at the March for Life in 2020. That was such an exciting time. President Trump took the stage. I know many of you were there. I will never forget what that moment was like to see him on the stage. And, I'll be really honest, from a logistical standpoint, it was really crazy because of the amount of security. And, looking back on that now, I even remember that I had crafted my speech and it was on the teleprompter. Now you know. But listen, that's important in moments like that. But anyway, we had these speeches crafted. They were to go on the teleprompter. And right before I took the stage, I was asking, which teleprompter do I look at? And they had said, oh, the teleprompter isn't working after the president has been here. Deep breath. Knew it was going to be okay. Ideally, it all worked out. They ended up being able to get the teleprompter up and running again. And, I'll never forget what a beautiful thing it was to speak at the March for Life in front of hundreds of thousands of people who have committed themselves to lives just like mine and the population of survivors we serve at the Abortion Survivors Network, and, the unborn still today, and rushing off that stage when it was all over and embracing Olivia, who was still 11 years old at the time. That's how quickly time is passing. She's 13 now. I had showed the video from Faces of Choice that day, and I knew that we were making a difference in the world, but little could we have known that that would be the last really big pro-life event before the pandemic hit. And I look back on everything that has happened since that time, and God has done such amazingly beautiful things at the Abortion Survivors Network, we have now reached 403 abortion survivors from 18 countries. Just in the last couple of weeks, I've been corresponding with a mom who experienced a failed abortion and has a teenager. I got to see a video of a preschooler. He had survived a failed abortion. He's now a preschooler. I got to see him doing hopscotch for the first time. And I get really emotional about that because I don't take his wins for granted. And I know his family doesn't either. So many beautiful things have happened at the Abortion Survivors Network with the survivors that we're serving with healing groups and educational programs, skill development like public speaking, launching survivors publicly for the first time as speakers, supporting survivors with community. As I talk about the grief and how long the month of August has been, some of our survivors have been suffering in big ways. And as hard as it is for me to see them walk through that, there is something so beautiful when I get to see even little comments on Facebook, survivors connecting with one another and saying, you know what, I'm here for you. Or I couldn't get through this difficult time without my survivor family. Man, that's why I do what I do. That's why I've sacrificed so much of what I have, because those moments are absolutely worth it. So much good has come during this time since the March for Life in 2020. And as the months march on, the months into years, and so much struggle and so much unknown still, we see successes in the pro-life movement. And we see obstacles. What I love about the work that we do at the Abortion Survivors Network is not only do we heal and empower and equip, but we also do policy work through the Education and Policy Center. We've been involved in so many hearings. This year alone, we were a part of hearings in South Dakota, North Dakota. We submitted testimonies to North Carolina multiple times, including from parents who had experienced failed abortions. We also were a part of the discharge petition on the Federal Born Alive Act. We're now up to 213 signatures, by the way, if you haven't been keeping count. We have some Democrats we need to have pretty pointed conversations with about that. That's going to come. Because to get to the number of signatures that we need Democrats to do the right thing, which would be to see us and hear us as abortion survivors and know that this is basic human rights. This is the compassionate thing to do, to make sure that survivors are not fighting for their life yet again after they fight for their life in the womb. But we've also been involved in testimony in Wisconsin on a Born Alive bill. That actually took place just recently. I'm waiting for an update from them about that. And of course, we all remember that I testified against the Women's Health Protection Act in June of this year at the request of Ranking Member Senator Ted Cruz. I bring that up because if you haven't noticed, it's coming up again in conversation in the media and out of DC in particular. Speaker of the House Pelosi has made it clear that in the wake of the Texas heartbeat bill, which is one of those successes, right? One of those wonderful impact circumstances that we're talking about, right? When we see successes and then we see obstacles, that heartbeat bill in Texas is a success. I know that we can all look at that bill and have things that maybe we wish were different. But what we need to do is look upon that bill and realize that they knew that they could do something bold and visionary, something that hadn't been done before, something that could set up a process for people to really have to pay attention. I don't know if everybody understands that, if you're not involved in the political side of things. I know it doesn't always make sense. But I hope that you can trust that when people are making some of the bold visionary moves they're doing it because they know that they have to do something different, that there are other means to the end where they're getting to. And I really, really respect the folks who were behind the heartbeat bill. Yeah, I've actually said, as I was reading through that bill initially, I said, I need to find out who crafted that because I need to shake their hand. But in the wake of that success, obviously, we know that there are a lot of thoughts and emotions, fear-mongering happening from the abortion industry. The sky is falling. You women are going to go back to 1972. You're right. You should be afraid of everything, of everyone. But yet I see my boots on the ground friends like Heather Gardner with the Coalition for Life in Austin, doing amazing things, always out on the sidewalk, not only praying, but making sure that women have support and resources. I see folks like my friends over at Lovelines who are serving more women than ever, making sure that the needs that they have that are driving them to abortion can be met, and empowering them to be able to change circumstances in their lives. Isn't that what we want? Why would the answer need to be for Lyft or whoever else wants to join in that from a company level? Why is the answer always throwing millions of dollars at lawyers? Why can't the answer be serving people and the needs that they have, and asking maybe the question first and foremost, what is it you need? If they asked women what they need, don't you think the answer would be more than abortion? I do. I know that it is. I know that it is. So here we are in this position with the success of Texas, and then we know the backlash that comes from it. And what we're seeing now is Speaker of the House Pelosi saying that when they come back into session the week of September 20th, they will take up the Women's Health Protection Act. Sound familiar to anyone? They're going to take that up to attempt to codify Roe versus Wade so that there can never be any kind of legislation like the heartbeat bill passed in any state to restrict abortion. And of course, when they say, any law that restricts abortion, what they're actually saying is any law that would protect innocent human life and protect the women who also need to be protected. I don't know if you're like me, but I've gone down some rabbit holes in the almost 2 weeks now when I'm recording this podcast. In the almost 2 weeks since the Texas heartbeat bill came out, and I have read some horrifying stories of women who have experienced chemical abortions at home. And these are women who were saying, hey, listen, I am not pro-life. I am 100% pro-choice, but I gotta tell you how awful my experience was. I know how horrific chemical abortions are. I know how the abortion industry doesn't provide any oversight for those women, doesn't give them any kind of information about what's going to happen to them, the horrific pain that they might experience hours on end, that they may pass their child in the toilet somewhere in the bathroom if they're lucky, somewhere else in the house, and they're going to come face to face with their child, albeit small, but their child with the beating heart underneath the skin that they can see. It doesn't matter how long I've known all of the gory details. Reading those women's stories have broken my heart and really made it so much more clear to me that we're on the right side. Not only on the right side for protecting the preborn, but also protecting women who deserve so much better than what the abortion industry is doing to them. But I share that because we know that we're in now this next phase of fight. Texas has passed the heartbeat bill, and now what? Will it pass in other states? I think we'll see that. Will the Supreme Court weigh in on things? It's probably likely at some point soon. We know, of course, that the Justice Department has set out to sue Texas, and prevent the heartbeat bill from continuing to save lives. And, I think back on these last few months and the question that I begged to Congress back in June about how abortion that was meant to end my life, how could that very thing that was meant to end my life simultaneously be my right to exercise? Nobody has ever answered that question for me. And as we prepare for this next phase of fight, because we know that's what it's going to be, I'm going to be asking that question on a consistent basis. And I would suspect you will hear other survivors alongside me asking the same question. Because as they keep talking about women's rights, they are leaving out the rights of a huge population of women as abortion survivors, and of course as preborn little girls in the womb who are losing their lives. How can we live in a society that continues to overlook women like me? Continue to overlook our stories. Continue to render us voiceless. Now is the time for women like me, and maybe women like you, if you're an abortion survivor and you're listening to this, or you're a woman who's experienced an abortion and you have suffered physically or emotionally, mentally, maybe this is our time to stand up and use our voices. And no, it doesn't mean necessarily going and testifying before Congress, but what it does mean is making sure that we are getting healed and that we are seeking out the people and the opportunities that we know that we are being called to with the experiences that we have. And I know this is not easy to do when abortion is front and center in the news. As you can imagine, abortion survivors are heavily triggered, traumatized by what's happening in the news. We celebrate the heartbeat bill, but then we see all of the commentary about how wrong this bill is, how it's going to be fought against, how it's worth suing the state of Texas over. We see the photos of barbed wire, coat hanger. Don't even get me started on that. You know how I feel about that. If you follow me very much at all, you know that I find the coat hanger reference to be incredibly disrespectful to my population of abortion survivors who survived coat hanger abortion attempts or other illegal abortions. So many disrespectful, dehumanizing comments that are happening in social media and in the news that survivors are being bombarded with on a daily basis. So we've been working hard to support our survivors even more. Survivors who are suicidal. Survivors who are saying, I have never felt more unwanted in my life. This is what it's like to be an abortion survivor. Yes, we have days where maybe we don't have to think about it, but those days are typically pretty few and far between. And especially as the battle for abortion rages on in our communities and in our culture, survivors suffer in many, many ways. And that brings me back to August. This year I didn't say much around my birthday. Some years are easier for me than others. When I turned 40, I was really struggling that year, and I think it was just the gravity of the year, realizing that 40 years ago to that day, I was accidentally born alive after being poisoned and scalded to death. 40 years ago on that day, I was laid aside. 40 years ago that day, someone had to fight for me to be rushed off to the NICU. 40 years ago that day, the truth of my survival was hidden from my birth mother, Ruth. 40 years from that day, right? 40 years ago on that day, I had to have extensive medical care provided to me to sustain my life. That birthday was hard 4 years ago. But this year was somehow a little bit easier for me. The month is never easy. My body remembers. If you haven't gone through trauma, or if you're not an abortion survivor or studied trauma, I know it may not make sense, but I can tell you my body remembers what was done to me. And so I go through things like chronic pain, anxiety, depression, problem sleeping. Sometimes I can get through the day-to-day, the weeks, the months without any significant issues, but around my birthday, things always pop up for me. And it took me a long time to figure out what that was. So this year I had a little bit of that happened. It always does. But then I was also undergoing surgery and had my gallbladder removed. So I don't know, maybe that helped to keep me a little bit occupied. But I think the other thing that really hit me this year is that, and it's going to make me emotional, using that day that has brought me so much suffering. Ultimately, that day gave me life, and I am forever grateful for that. And so much good is wrapped around that, and so much good has happened in my life since that. But that day, by and large, is not a good day for me. But that day, I was able to look upon my birthday and realize that God has allowed so much good to come from that day of suffering, from the years of long suffering for Ruth and for me. That now I have this whole family of survivors who understand what it's like to have a birthday that you both love and loathe at the same time. That I have this family of abortion survivors who are experiencing radical transformation in their lives because God allowed me to see them and hear them in a world that somehow wanted to turn a blind eye to us. So good has come from that traumatic day for me. And I share that with you not only to show you that this doesn't ever really get easier. We cope with it. We do. We cope with it. We appreciate the things about it that we can appreciate. But I also share that with you because I want to encourage you to know that if you have a day that you feel like you can't face, the anniversary of your abortion, the day you survived a failed abortion, whatever it is, I want to give you some hope and encouragement that it's not always hard. Yes, we do have those hard years, but as we continue to heal and use all things for good, not only does it help other people, but it helps us. And those are my words of encouragement to you as we're staring down the face of those long suffering months into years. We celebrate the successes like the heartbeat bill, successes like children like me surviving abortions every day. And then we look upon the obstacles like Speaker Pelosi introducing the Women's Health Protection Act, finding ways to codify Roe. We look upon those and realize that if God can do all the things in our lives that he already has, then there's nothing that he can't and won't do. But he needs each and every one of us to give of our time and our talent, and for many people too, our financial treasure, to make a difference. This isn't a time where we get to just stay in the spot that we're in. God is calling on us to be bold and visionary and do the next right thing. So as you can imagine, I'm busy being bold, visionary, and making plans to do the next right thing. You're going to see it. I say it. There's more than one thing. I'm always doing more than one thing, as you can probably imagine. There's going to be a lot of next right things that you're going to see us engaging in at the Abortion Survivors Network and the Education and Policy Center. And if you feel called to be a part of it, just know that we always have an open door here. We need interns, volunteers, so many opportunities for people to help us with special event planning, getting panels of survivors to speak at your church, maybe doing something online, you name it, the sky's the limit. Now is the time that we are called to mobilize and amplify the voices of people who have been impacted by abortion. And abortion survivors are one of the key people whose voices need amplified. they need healed first. They need supported. They need loved on. But yes, then they can be empowered and equipped so their voices can be amplified. So that's where I'm at with things in the world today. I am praying that the month of September rolling out for the rest of the year isn't as long of a month or months as what August seemed to be. And I look forward to changing and saving and transforming lives alongside each and every one of you. God bless. Thanks for joining me this week on Life Empowers. I hope you found our time together to be life-affirming, hope-building, encouraging, informative. And remember, the next time someone states that abortion is empowering, you know better. Life empowers. See you again next week.